Horatio Laureau's induction into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame comes 50 years after he trained Northern Dancer to a brilliant 3-year-old season, highlighted by the Canadian bred's historic victory in the Kentucky Derby. Laureau, an Argentinian who stood close to 6 foot 3 inches tall, cast a huge shadow over Canadian racing. He was the first to ship a horse from the United States to contest the Canadian Championship, or as it was called then, the Long Branch Championship. Eugenia, too, was the first winner and was followed the next year by Spinney. Laureau added a third championship to his record many years later when a son of Northern Dancer, One for All, triumphed. Laureau also won the Queen's Plate 3 times. Victoria Park in 1960 was the first. The Winfields Farm colt had gained international recognition as one of the best of his generation. Filly Flaming Page had proven to be one of the best of her sex in North America by finishing second to the Kentucky Oaks to champion Cicada, provided a plate victory in 1962. Then along came the little dynamo, Northern Dancer, in 1964. Thousands flocked to Woodbine, eager to see the colt that had become the first Canadian bred to win the famed Run for the Roses. The son of Nearctic and Atalma, both of which Laureau trained during their careers, raced from last to first in the final race of Northern Dancer's storied career. The Canadian icon's success on the track is a testament to Laureau's expertise as a horseman. Northern Dancer had a sprinter's speed from the outset. Laureau knew he would have to develop the skill to race up to 1 1/4 miles, and he did. A champion on the track and in the breeding shed, Albatross made a significant impact on the standardbred breed. With 59 wins and 71 starts, including the Cane Pace and Messenger Stakes in 1971, he earned in excess of $1.2 million. Major stakes wins in Canada included the Prix d'Été and Canadian Pacing Derby. Initially owned by Bert James of Windsor, Ontario, and trained and driven by U.S. Hall of Famer Harry Harvey, Albatross won 14 of 17 starts in 1970 at 2, earned over $183,000, and posted a mark of 157.4. Syndicated early in his 3-year-old season for $1.25 million, a record for a horse at that point in his career, he was moved to Stanley Dancer's tutelage and won 25 of 28 starts and nearly $560,000. At 4, he started 26 times, winning 20 and earning over $450,000. The Meadow Skipper's son out of Voodoo, Hanover, was named U.S. Horse of the Year in 1971 and 1972. He retired as both the fastest and richest horse in the breed's history with a mark of 154.3 at Chicago's Sportsman's Park. It was as a sire and an outstanding broodmare sire that Albatross really made his mark. In 1972, he was re-syndicated for $2.5 million, with Hanover Shoe Farms in Pennsylvania holding a major interest. Albatross began his stallion career at Hanover Shoe Farms in 1973 and was buried there when he died at age 30. Albatross's 2,640 sons and daughters earned over $148 million combined, currently ranking him 5th in the sport all time. His progeny include Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame members Niatross, often considered the greatest pacer of the 20th century, and Fan Hanover, the only filly to win the Little Brown Jug. William Bill Galvin, a native of Arnprior, Ontario, and now a resident of Mississauga, Ontario, made a tremendous impact on horse racing in the country. So much so that he is part of just the second class to be inducted into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame's Communicator category. Galvin is a Canadian horse racing historian, poet, author, publisher, educator, horseman, humanitarian, publicist, former thoroughbred racing official, and executive editor of Trot magazine. His promotions transcend racing. he led a charge to bring harness racing onto the ice on Ottawa's Rideau Canal and exposed the sport to thousands of potential fans. He started the Race for MS fundraiser to gain exposure for the sport and ran numerous other high-profile campaigns dedicated to the well-being of horse racing during his career. He was also a member of the advisory board for the School of Equine Studies at Toronto's Humber College of Applied Arts. Galvin was the Director of Special Promotions, Harness and Thoroughbred, for the Ontario Jockey Club and Publicity Chairman for the Greenwood Centennial Program. He produced a history of Grand Circuit racing in Canada and the Golden Horseshoe Circuit Press Book, conducted equine poetry and art competitions for grade school children, and organized both trotting under saddle races at Greenwood and intercollegiate harness driving championships. He published Ballads of the Turf in 2006, was the first publicity chairman of the Sovereign Awards, and published a 100-year history of racing at Greenwood and Woodbine. Galvin, the former president of the North American Harness Publicists Association, was a regular weekly contributor to Canadian and U.S. harness trade magazines and wrote a regular nightly review of the races for the dailies and other media. During the 1990s, Apelia was Canada's dominant female sprinter, a recognition earned both in Canada as well as against the world's leading distaff sprinters. The Dark Bay filly, bred and owned by Steve and Sally Stavros' Nob Hill Stables, won graded stakes or earned stakes place finishes in both Canada and the U.S. Unraced as a 2-year-old, Apelia arrived with presence in her 3-year-old season. Winning her maiden race at Greenwood by 7 lengths, she went on to win 5 more times in 1992, including 3 straight versus Allowance Company, her U.S. Stakes debut in the Gallant Bloom, and the Ontario Fashion Handicap at Woodbine.
Apelia runs back to her race at Saratoga and wins the Ontario Fashion Stakes.
Her peak came as a 4-year-old, winning 5 of 9 starts in stakes competition on both sides of the border, finishing out of the money just once in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, following a bad bump out of the gate. The Phil England conditioned filly was named Canada's champion sprinter. Wins included the Queen's Breeders' Cup Stakes at Turfway, the Genuine Risk at Belmont, and homecoming scores in the Royal North Breeders' Cup Handicap and the Toronto Budweiser Breeders' Cup Handicap against the boys, including multiple stakes-winning stablemate and half-brother Megas Vucephalus.
There's 3 of them. This is going to be tight. Megas Vucephalus and Apelia. Apelia, a brilliant effort, wins the Toronto Budweiser Breeders' Cup in 109.
At age 5, she captured a repeat win at Belmont in the Grade 2 Genuine Risk, upsetting top American filly Spinning Round.
But in mid-stretch, Apelia shakes loose by 3, leaving Spinning Round in her wake, back running in second, but they're coming down to the line, and Apelia will go on to a decisive 3-length victory.
In 24 career starts, Apelia had a 12-3-3 record, earning over $620,000. As a broodmare, Apelia is the dam of multiple stakes winner Sorsay, Sovereign Award winner as Champion Older Mare in the year 2000. The late Bob Murphy of British Columbia was one of Canada's most prolific horse owners. At his peak, Murphy, known by his popular Red Star moniker, owned more than 400 horses. Murphy died in February of 2010 at the age of 77, 2 years after the BC Standardbred Breeders' Society recognized Murphy and his wife Mary by renaming the BC Breeders' Stakes 3-year-old races in their honor. Bob and Mary were married for 57 years and had 3 daughters together, Denise, Linda, and Sharon. One of the nation's most respected breeders and owners, Bob owned horses for more than 30 years and averaged 935 starts as an owner each year between 2005 and 2009. In 2007, at the age of 74, Murphy owned more standardbreds than anyone else in Canada. At the time of his death, horses owned in whole or in part by Murphy had earned over $100 million. Bob was also one of the most successful businessmen in BC. He built and owned a Serta mattress manufacturing plant and another facility under the name of Advanced Wire Products. He also built and owned 2 exclusive fishing ports in British Columbia. It all started with a hot dog stand in Kelowna, BC. In 2006, he was nominated for an O'Brien Award as Canada's Breeder of the Year. At the time of Murphy's death, Chuck Keeling, then general manager at Fraser Downs Racetrack and Casino, told Standardbred Canada, "I can't think of anyone who has had the type of impact on this province's industry like Bob, Mary, and the rest of their family." Harness Racing BC Executive Director Jackson Widdop proclaimed, "Standardbred racing across North America was dealt a severe blow with the passing of Robert Murphy." Bob had horses all over North America as well as his home base in BC and a large stable in Alberta.
They've got a quarter of a mile to go, and here they come out of the turn and into the home stretch. Northern Dancer on the lead.
50 years ago, the bold thoroughbred known as Canada's Great Little Horse returned home after winning 2/3 of the American Triple Crown, illuminated by an 85-year-old record-breaking victory in the Kentucky Derby.
It's coming to the wire. It's going to be tight. Northern Dancer gets it.
2 weeks later, the racing world focused on Pimlico and the Preakness. Many thought the Kentucky Derby had depleted Northern Dancer's strength and stamina, that he would not be able to defeat Heel Rise a second time. By the half-mile pole, Northern Dancer freed himself of his challengers and sprinted to the finish for an easy 2.5-length victory.
Here comes that finish line. Northern Dancer by 2 lengths.
A short, stocky colt with unyielding determination, Northern Dancer was an instant hero. Eagerly awaited by his fans in Canada for the 1964 Queen's Plate, Northern Dancer went off as the 1-5 favorite, swooping around the final turn and into the limelight, bounding home in gallant fashion.
And coming into the stretch, it's Northern Dancer. He's pulling away now. Northern Dancer in front by 3 or 4 lengths. Lang Crest is holding on to the second position. Grand Garçon is third and return trip. It's Northern Dancer. He moves out in front by 8 lengths now with 70 yards to go. And coming down the wire, Canada's Great Little Horse, Northern Dancer, wins handily by 7.
His victory on home soil in the first jewel of Canada's Triple Crown would be his last. The champion was retired from racing, leaving an indelible mark in the hearts and minds of Canadians and sport in Canada. From there, he reached the world. Northern Dancer went on to become arguably the greatest sire of the 20th century. To this day, his potent legacy lives on in myriad example. Northern Dancer was truly a spirit horse, a valiant warrior born to beat the odds, and forever a Canadian hero.
The horses are now in the hands of the starter for the 9th race, the Mohawk Gold Cup. It's post time. This field is now in motion, and there they go. They're off and pacing. Soft Light leaves out Bat Scooter from the inside. Moving out now from the center of the racetrack. That's Take a Look 3 deep into the first turn. Runnymede Lobel from the far outside now 4th. Barely Visible drops back 5th, and Moneylender is 6th into the turn. With the early lead is Soft Light. Take a Look up the rail now 2nd. Runnymede Lobel parked out in 3rd. Matt Scooter has come away in 4th. Barely Visible is 5th into the turn in 6th. As they make their way to the first quarter is Moneylender. In the first quarter, 26 1/5. In front of the stand, Soft Light by a half a length. Here comes Runnymede Lobel on the outside now in 2nd. Take a Look is 3rd. Matt Scooter gearing up now 4th on the outside. Barely Visible is in 5th. And Moneylender continues in 6th. Runnymede Lobel and inherits the lead now for Eve's Filion, opening up to a length. Soft Light up the rail in second. Matt Scooter parked out now third. Take a Look is fourth. Barely Visible starts up from fifth. Moneylender is sixth. 53 and 3 1/2. Into the backstretch towards 3/4. Runnymede Lobel a half a length in front. Here comes Matt Scooter on the outside. At the rail, Soft Light is third. Moving up fourth with cover. Barely Visible. Take a Look is fifth. Moneylender is sixth. Then Matt Scooter takes over the lead. Runnymede Lobel at the rail now in second. Third the outside is Barely Visible. Soft Light he is fourth. Moneylender moving up to become fifth. Take a Look sixth. 3/4. 1:21 and 4. The track record is definitely gone, and Matt Scooter opens up the 2 lengths. At the rail, Runnymede Lobel is second. Here comes Barely Visible now third. Soft Light is fourth. Moneylender is fifth, and Take a Look is sixth. They're at the top of the lane. Coming to the payoff, Matt Scooter. Here comes Barely Visible. Runnymede Lobel at the rail. Moneylender with a late rush between Pacers and Soft Light. Matt Scooter in the Gold Cup. Look at the clock. 1:51 flat.
Dream Fair Eternal, the homebred daughter of 2 Hall of Fame parents, Canadian Hall of Fame stallion Cam Luck, out of John and Mary Lamer's beloved U.S. Hall of Famer JC's Natalie, earned more than $2.5 million and posted a record of 56, 18, and 13 in 140 starts over 7 seasons. Dream Fair Eternal was named Canada's Horse of the Year in 2010 and top older pacing mare in both 2009 and 2010. Race wins include the Breeders' Crown for older pacing mares, the Milton Stakes, the Lady Liberty, Alimony, Golden Girls, Forest City Final, and was a 2-time winner of both the Roses of Red and Art Escape for trainer Pat Fletcher.
Dream Fair Eternal looking for an upset, and she is found it in the Roses of Red Stakes Final. She pulls it off at 25-1.
Along the way, Dream Fair Eternal set a half-mile record of 151 and 4 at Flamborough Downs, as well as track records at Georgian 150 and 4, Tioga 149 and 4, and Mohawk 149 and 2. Her career best was a 149 effort at the 5/8 mile Tioga Downs in her 8th and final year on the racetrack. Despite Dream Fair Eternal's success as an older mare, she got off to a slow start. She was difficult to train as a 2-year-old, and many passed on the opportunity to do so. Still, John Lamers was optimistic about her talent. As a young horse, she'd make dirty breaks to the point where top drivers, including Randy Waples, who had the most success driving her, weren't too keen on piloting her at the time. In February 2008, with mixed emotions, John Lamer put the then underachieving 4-year-old in a mixed sale, but was only willing to part with her if his reserve bid of $85,000 was met. When his price wasn't reached, he brought his mare back home. For Lamers, taking her home was the blessing of a lifetime. A.W. Stollery served in the Royal Canadian Air Force during World War II as a flying officer. Along with fellow Hall of Fame builder Mel Lawson, was a member of the 1943 Grey Cup champion Hamilton RCAF Flying Wildcats. Stollery turned a zest for life and a love of calculated risk-taking in the mining industry to success in the horse breeding industry, breeding and racing numerous significant stakes winners. Stollery ran Angus Glen Farm, a horse breeding operation in Markham, Ontario, racing under the turquoise and orange silks of his wife, Mrs. Helen Stollery. Breeding mares with bloodlines from Canada, the US, and South America to top stallions, success was immediate with first crop of foals, Laurie's Dancer, Kennedy Road, and Gallant Glen, all winning stakes. All told, his 16 stakes winners won more than 40 stakes in Canada and internationally over 2 decades. Northern Dancer daughter, Laurie's Dancer, won filly races in Canada and the US in 1971, including the Starshoot Stakes, the Canadian Oaks, the Alabama Stakes at Saratoga, and the Delaware Oaks, before being named Horse of the Year in 1971, followed by induction into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame in 2006. Kennedy Road dominated Canadian racing for 3 years, winning the Queen's Plate in 1971.
They're not going to catch Kennedy Road today. Kennedy Road wins it.
He was awarded championship colt honors at 2, 3, and 4. In 1973 at 5, he was voted Canada's Horse of the Year and set a track record in a 6-furlong race at Woodbine that stood for 26 years. Woodbine's Kennedy Road Stakes bears his name. Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame induction was bestowed in the year 2000. Stollery died in August 1994 at the age of 80. The same year, one of his foals, Talkin' Man, who was bred and owned jointly with Kinghaven Farms, was named Canada's champion 2-year-old following multiple stakes wins.
And they're off, and Talkin' Man comes out running.
1995 brought U.S. wins at the Gotham City Stakes and the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, New York. He would go on to sire Better Talk Now, winner of the Breeders' Cup Turf in 2004. Owner and breeder Gustav Schickedanz's decision to breed homebred stallion and northern dancer grandson Langfur to his stakes-winning mare Katie's Colleen resulted in Wando becoming only the 7th winner of the Triple Crown since 1959. A multiple stakes winner as a juvenile, he was spectacular in 2003 as he dominated in Canada's Triple Crown, winning the Queen's Plate by 9 lengths, the Prince of Wales over a muddy surface at Fort Erie by 4 lengths, and the 1.5-mile Breeders' Stakes on Woodbine's turf course by 1.5 lengths. Beginning with his maiden-breaking first career start for trainer Mike Keogh, the flashy red colt seemed special. He won his next race, the Vandal Stakes, by almost 8 lengths, chalking up the first of 7 victories in 12 consecutive stakes. The Queen's Plate brought a jockey change with Patrick Husbands replacing Todd Cable, following Cable's decision to ride stablemate Mobile. Despite the race being billed as a showdown between the two, Wando was too quick for Mobile and the other 10 challengers who he cleared early as well, winning by 9 lengths.
It is all Wando, sharp, strong, and a dominating winner of the Queen's Plate. Wando, simply spectacular.
In the Breeders' Stakes, Husband successfully dealt with a 3-horse entry by Samson Farms, Shoalwater, Colorful Judgment, and Parasail, winning the Triple Crown.
And Canada salutes the Breeders' Stakes winner and the Triple Crown champion. Wando was better than wonderful this afternoon. He was magnificent.
Wando was retired at 5 to stallion duty with earnings of over $2.5 million and a race record 11-2-2 in 23 starts. Initially, he stood at Lane's End Farm in Versailles, Kentucky, along with sire Langfur. He was later relocated to Schickedan's Schoenberg Farm in Nobleton, Ontario, where he died in early 2014 at the age of 14. Wando's progeny include Tourallure, winner of the Woodbine Mile, and a close second in the Breeders' Cup Mile in 2011, Wando Woman, a stakes winner in British Columbia, as well as Dees Wando, Stakes Place in Ontario. Though the bulk of his success came in the United States, driver Wally Hennessy credits his upbringing in Prince Edward Island, his parents Joe and Shirley, and his 8 siblings for his strength of character and his desire to be loyal, fair, and never wanting to hurt anyone with his decisions and choices. Wally, 57 at the time of his induction into the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame, has more than 8,500 victories to his credit and has banked earnings in excess of $58 million in the sulky. He has been remarkably consistent in his career, winning at least 200 races and more than $1 million in each of the last 25 years, and was inducted into the National Harness Racing Hall of Fame at Goshen, New York in 2007. Hennessy is best known as the driver of Moneymaker, one of the greatest horses in harness racing history. Moneymaker set a worldwide career earnings record of more than $5.5 million by the time she retired in 2000. She was a multiple stakes winner in North America and Europe, including the Prix de Melique, Elite Lop, Nat Ray, Hambletonian Oaks, and many others.
And Moneymaker and Wally Hennessy are pouring it on now. They're 5 lengths in front with an 1/8 of a mile to come. Magician is all out second. Ringside Rocket and Nikki Kolkol trying to close in, but they're all chasing the Queen of Trotting. Moneymaker in her final Meadowlands appearance is striding home, and Moneymaker will do it. It's Moneymaker and the Nat Ray.
Hennessy has noted that his dual Hall of Fame honors tops both driving Moneymaker and the thrill of working with another harness racing legend, Stanley Dancer, who in the last years of his life spent time at the Wally and Danny Hennessy stable. Though he's been racing at Pompano Park in Florida for more than 25 years and was for many years a top driver on the New York Sires Stakes circuit, Wally is still an Islander at heart, and Islanders are undeniably proud that his heart never truly left. The year was 1939, and for the first time in plate history, a ruling monarch was in attendance to witness the 80th running of the race when Archworth galloped to a 10-length victory at majestic Woodbine Park.
And he's opening up on this field. It's Archworth and nothing to it. It's come to the finish line. It's Archworth the winner by 10 lengths.
King George VI bestowed 50 gold-plated sovereigns and a gold-plated trophy to George McCullough, publisher of the Globe and Mail and owner of the mercury-footed colt he had bought for a mere $500 at a public auction of yearlings in 1937. With a wire-to-wire victory in the plate, trainer Mark Cowell's unorthodox and possibly punishing training schedule for the Worthmore sired colt silenced skeptics who had questioned his methods in the weeks leading up to the race. Acclaimed as Canada's champion 2-year-old with victories in the Mrs. Orpin's Cup and Saucer and Clarendon Stakes in 1938, Archworth dominated the racing scene in 1939, as he also captured the Prince of Wales and Breeders' Stakes, 20 years before this trio of races became an official event, the year of the next royal visit. The Chestnut Colt's King's Plate victory signaled an important rule change in plate eligibility. It was now open only to 3-year-olds. McCullough, publisher of the Globe and Mail, gained his love for horses in his boyhood, and he praised William H. Wright, the mining prospector and stock promoter from Barrie, who bred the Chestnut Colt. He pleaded with the diffident Wright to go to the royal dais and take the honor in his place. My thrill is nothing at all compared to the joy in Bill Wright's heart. It's been a lifelong dream. Archworth's victory delighted the royal party as His Majesty, an owner breeder himself, rarely took his binoculars off the colt during the race. Never have I seen a horse go out and take such a long lead and hold it, observed Queen Elizabeth. Archworth was never able to reclaim the fame he enjoyed in 1939. When he was retired at age 5 to stud at Wright's Farm in Barrie, Archworth had won 15 times and was second or third in 16 other races. His gross earnings in 47 starts were $31,234. In 1870, E. King Dodds, a prominent Toronto politician with a proclivity for horse racing, founded the Canadian Sportsman. The magazine was just 3 years younger than Canada itself and 10 years younger than the Queen's Plate. E. King Dodds ran the magazine for 40 years, the last 5 while completely blind. The early years of the magazine didn't just focus on harness racing, but featured thoroughbred racing along with hunting, fishing, curling, and other sports. By the 1920s, the Canadian Sportsman dealt exclusively with harness racing. The magazine was a potpourri of memorable events Dodds witnessed or participated in as a horseman or devout player of the pools. In 1909, he published a book in his quaint and often acerbic recollections of horse racing reaching back to as early as the 1840s. Remarkably, Dodds completed the book without sight, and it was hailed as one of the first and best serious attempts to record sports history. The Canadian sportsman survived 2 world wars and the Great Depression and would continue to publish for 143 years, making it the longest-running magazine of any kind in the nation. And one harness racing certainly was proud to call its own, and all thanks to E. King Dodds. Cool Mood, a stakes-winning daughter of Northern Daughter, bred by H.A. Love, was owned and raced by D.G. Bud Wilmot's Kinghaven Farms of King City, Ontario. Trained by John Russell, the Chestnut filly won the Canadian Oaks in 1969 with John Sellers in the saddle, the Kirkland Stakes at Old Bluebonnets in Montreal, and was stakes placed in the Duchess and Tatling Stakes. While her race record of 8 wins and 41 starts wasn't that impressive, her legacy is what she produced and what her daughters and granddaughters produced. Cool Mood's daughters were simply magnificent. 5 of her 9 daughters produced 12 stakes winners, 2 of which won the Canadian Triple Crown and a third the Belmont Stakes. Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame horses that carry Cool Mood's blood include, with approval, out of Cool Mood's daughter Passing Mood was the 1989 Triple Crown winner and multiple graded stakes winner in the U.S., set a world record on the turf at Belmont in the Bowling Green, and a track record in the Tidal Stakes. 1997 Belmont Stakes winner Touch Gold, also out of Passing Mood, won the Grade 1 Haskell Invitational at Monmouth, New Jersey, and the Grade 2 Lexington Stakes at Santa Anita. Cool Mood's daughter, Shy Spirit, was named Broodmare of the Year in 1990. The same year her colt, Izvestia, by Escapade, won the Triple Crown, the Molson Export Million, and was a graded stakes winner in the U.S. Shy Spirit also produced stakes winners Key Spirit, Introspective, Unduplicated, and stakes placed Playful Spirit. Rock and Roll Hanover left both the track and the sporting world wanting more. The son of Western Ideal, out of Canadian Hall of Fame mare Rich and Elegant, left the track after a dominant 149 victory in November 2005 in the final of the Breeders' Crown for 3-year-old pacing colts at the Meadowlands.
But they're all giving tittle chase. Rock and Roll will never die. Rock and Roll Hanover is a smash hit in the Breeders' Crown.
In March 2013, at the age of 11, and in the prime of a successful stallion career, he developed a gastric impaction and was humanely euthanized. Rock and Roll Hanover sired the winners of $65 million from 7 racing-aged crops and was one of the top pacing stallions of his generation. On the track, Rock and Roll Hanover earned over $3 million for the ownership group of Audrey Campbell's Lothlorien Equestrian Center, Jeffrey Snyder, and Peretti Racing Stable, the farm where the pacer stood for his entire stallion career. Rock and Roll Hanover won all 3 of pacing's million-dollar races. He became the sport's first sub-152-year-old, winning the $1 million Metro Pace in 2004 at Woodbine in 149.4. At 3, he won stakes races from May through to December, including the $1.5 million Pepsi North America Cup at Woodbine in June.
He was no one-hit wonder. This is Rock and Roll. Make it Rock and Roll Hanover. Rock and Roll Hanover totally rocked the house at Woodbine.
And the $1 million Meadowlands Pace in July. He is the only horse in history to win the Metro North America Cup, Meadowlands Pace, and a Breeders' Crown. Never worse than 3rd during a sophomore campaign, he posted a 12-4-2 record in 18 starts and earnings of over $2.3 million, just shy of harness racing's single-season earnings record at the time. In 2005, Rock and Roll Hanover was named the U.S. Horse of the Year and also earned an O'Brien Award as the top sophomore pacing colt in Canada. He averaged over $100,000 in earnings per start over 26 career races, in which he sported a record of 15 5-5 for trainer Brett Pelling and driver Brian Sears. Robert Landry, one of this country's most popular riders, was voted Canada's outstanding jockey in both 1993 and 1994. While his most memorable win came in the 2004 Queen's Plate aboard Chiefswood Stables' Negon.
Dreams can come true. Negon and Robert Landry, they win the Queen's Plate.
Landry also won the Woodbine Oaks 3 times. Born in Toronto in 1962, Landry recorded his first victory at Fort Erie in 1981 aboard Hammy Hubert. His first stakes win came in 1982 in the Fairplay Stakes aboard LaSalle Park. His final stakes score was also his last career win and came aboard Rocky's Attorney in the 2010 With Approval Stakes. Despite struggling with significant injuries, including twice breaking his back, during his 30-year career, Landry accumulated 2,045 victories, including 167 stakes wins. Asked to ride regularly for the Sue Leslie stable in the 1990s, became a turning point in his career. He also rode mounts for Hall of Fame trainers Roger Atfield and McDonald Benson. Riding for Samson Farms was also an integral part of his success. In the 2000 Auto Mile, Samson Farms' Quiet Resolve, with Landry aboard, was moved to first place through disqualification in one of the biggest upsets in Canadian racing history. Outside of Canada, Landry performed well during winter action at Gulfstream Park in Florida, competing against such riders as Jerry Bailey and Pat Day. In the 2009 Grade 1 Alabama Stakes at Saratoga, Landry partnered Careless Jewel to a win.
And a breakthrough performance by Careless Jewel, who has dominated in the 129th running of the Alabama.
Aware of the importance of promotion in the racing game, Landry made a concerted effort to be an ambassador for the sport, often volunteering to greet the public on Woodbine Family Days or to welcome customers back on opening day. More recently, he has enthusiastically supported Long Run, and he continues to support racetrack charities while at the same time fulfilling his role as general manager of Chiefswood Stables. Dr. Ted Clark enters the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame in the Builders category. The former veterinarian gave up his practice in 2002 when construction began on Grand River Raceway. Clark played a key role in a number of notable industry achievements. He helped rescue Elmira Raceway from closure, worked with other small tracks to establish a teletheater network when simulcasting was in its infancy, led the charge to have Grand River Raceway built when the town of Elmira balked at allowing slot machines, and established his track's popular Industry Day card featuring the Battle of Waterloo Stakes. Though he grudgingly acknowledges he might have played a small role to help those initiatives come to fruition, he refuses to take credit for any of them being his idea alone. Instead, he lists the people, colleagues, and organizations that he's had the pleasure of working with. Clark's roots in racing trace back to the Ontario Harness Horse Association in the early 1980s. Later becoming part of Elmira Raceway's management team in 1988 as the horseperson's representative. To this day, Clark and the racing participants have a solid relationship built on mutual respect. Clark continues to be much sought after for industry panels and working groups for his recent approach, intelligence, and honesty. In truth, he is a farm boy at heart, a man more comfortable in a barn or on a tractor than a boardroom, and still on race nights at Grand River can be found on a tractor or pitching in to help in the paddock. Born in Goderich, Ontario, Bill Graham was an outstanding athlete playing hockey and lacrosse and was a lineman in the CFL before retiring to join his brother Don in the construction business. Graham Brothers Construction Limited, one of Ontario's largest independent heavy equipment construction contractors. His interest in racing began during a visit to Gulfstream, Florida with his late wife Valerie, and was soon followed after with the purchase of his first horse, Hidden Worth, from neighbor and friend Bill Bovaird. Windhaven achieved racing success under the guidance of Mort Hardy, Mike Doyle, and Roger Atfield. Over the past 40 years, starting when Sugar Razor won the St. Boniface, Windhaven horses have captured virtually every elite race for fillies, from the E.P. Taylor to the Glorious Song. In 2012, Graham won his first Sovereign Award as Outstanding Breeder, with just 32 starters, winning 20 races and 6 stakes. Standout Windhaven bred horses in 2012 include U.S. Grade 1 winner Joyful Victory and the Horse of the Year and Champion 2-year-old colt Uncaptured. The success continued for Windhaven in 2013, producing 20 winners from 29 starters, earning $2.2 million. The year culminated with Captivating, Dam of Uncaptured, being named Broodmare of the Year. Windhaven's bred fillies include a long list of Sovereign Award winners from Wavering Girl to Fantasy Lake. Graham's first filly was Majestic Gala. With several major stakes wins, she later sold for $2.5 million.
And now Majestic Gala coming to take the lead on the outside with Christie's mount. Majestic Gala on top.
Graham is a member of the Brampton Sports Hall of Fame. He served as vice president of the HBPA, a director of the CTHS, a commissioner of the ORC, a steward of the Jockey Club of Canada, and a member of Woodbine's board of directors.